You're listening to The Morning Uplift, the podcast that brings you motivation and encouragement throughout your week. I'm your host, Liz Colburn. Grab your coffee, begin getting ready for your day, and join me as we discuss what it means to find the beauty in your journey. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Morning Uplift. I hope everybody just enjoyed their beautiful weekend. I know I had a very fun bachelorette party that I attended, and it was actually the very first time that I spent the entire day away from my 5-month-old son, but it was so good for him to have some time with daddy too. So today you are in for a real treat as my beautiful friend Dana Price is going to tell you about her journey and what you can learn from her story. She's going to, I just wanted to give you a heads up that she's going to be talking about her journey as a mother, and she hopes that whether or not you are a mother, will be a mother one day, or wherever you are on your journey, you can glean some inspiration from her story. So, Dana, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. It's really an honor.
Yeah, I've been talking to Dana for a couple weeks now. I had the idea to bring her on because I've heard her story before, but I'm so excited for her to be here and to be sharing this with me. So I'm going to give her a brief introduction and let her get started with her motivational mantra. Dana is 27 years old. She is a stay-at-home mom of 2. She's also a health coach and a jewelry designer. You need to see some of her jewelry designs. They are just absolutely beautiful, and she's so talented. She was born and raised in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but now she lives in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And in her free time, she loves spending time with her family. She's an avid reader, and she's actually inspiring me to read more, too. She's leading a book club right now that I'm a part of, and she is just such a great leader when it comes to picking good books and having people be excited about reading. She also enjoys painting and learning about growing her mind and helping other people find their inner light. Woo! That was such a great introduction. I'm so pumped that you're here, Dana, and I want to let you get into it right away. So let's start like we always do with what struggles and obstacles have shaped your life the most?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that introduction. Wow. I'm like almost in tears over here. It's such an honor to be on. The struggles that have shaped my life the most all kind of revolve around pregnancy and motherhood. When I was 18 years old, fresh out of high school, I became pregnant, and I was in not the greatest relationship at the time. It wasn't very healthy, but, being in the relationship at the time, obviously you don't really necessarily see all the signs that you do looking back. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to keep the baby. He tried to get me to terminate, but I refused, and we ended up deciding to put the baby up for adoption, which was not an easy decision to make, especially because I was hiding the pregnancy from my family. I didn't want them trying to talk me into keeping the baby or trying to talk me out of my decision, which was what I felt was going to be best for my son. And after giving my son up, I fell into a very deep depression, just not having anyone to talk to about it, not being able to share that struggle with anyone, and not being able to share the joys. It was an open adoption, so I was receiving pictures and letters and watching my son grow up from afar, and not being able to share those with my family and friends was just heartbreaking. And then,
Dana, I just want to pause there and just,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure the listeners just listening to that, even that beginning, these feelings that are washing over me listening to this again. I've heard your story before, but the listeners hearing this for the first time, I just want to hang on that moment and just have everybody put themselves in your shoes and just think what that would have been like. I can't even imagine now having a 5-month-old, what it would have been like to hide my pregnancy from the moment I knew about it all the way through term, from my family, from my friends, from my support system. So girl, you are a shining light that you are, I know in that moment that had to have been so hard. I want to let you talk about that deeper and just have everyone understand how hard that would have been, first of all, and then, the steps that you're talking about now. I want you to go in further about that open adoption and what that looked like a little bit.
It was very hard hiding it. I mean, my brother actually got married while I was 8 months pregnant, and I was in the wedding, and trying to continually put off the bridesmaid dress trying on, just knowing that I wasn't going to get any smaller. I put it off to the very last minute, and the seamstress got so mad at me that she had to try and let it out to its absolute limits. And my parents kept making my comments that if I continued gaining weight, that my boyfriend was going to leave me. And for the actual wedding, I was wearing 2 different corsets underneath the dress and had to leave the reception early because I was so uncomfortable and so worried about having to try and, keep my belly as flat as I could for that time. And,
oh my gosh, Dana, I literally have tears in my eyes because I just can't even understand what that would have been like for you, and that you were 8 months pregnant and having this burden of not the baby because you wanted the baby so badly. You wanted to, bring the baby to term so it could have a good life. But the fact that you yourself were taking such, a hard moment in your life, you were just taking the burden of it all. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. I kept holding on to the profile that we picked for my son's parents. The adoption agency sent us a book of profiles, and we got to go through and pick which parents we would potentially like, and then they would reach out to them and basically kind of try and sell me on them. And I just, on the hard days, I would just hold on to that profile and cry, just envisioning the type of life that I thought he was going to have with them and hoping that that would be enough.
And Dana, you, I know, this is part of your story too, when your son was born, and then, having him go to this family and wanting a better life for him. Is your son, is this somebody that you still keep in contact with with the family and things like that, or what kind of relationship do you have with them now?
Now I get a letter from them once a year around his birthday. They'll send pictures, but I'm also friends with both of his parents on Facebook. So I can check in with them. I can message them whenever I want to, and we have such a great open relationship. I get to watch, before Christmas, I got to watch him perform Jingle Bells on the piano for one of his concerts. And it's the neatest feeling to see them as a family and know that I had a part in helping to create that.
Oh my goodness, you have such an amazing outlook. There's things that happen sometimes where, people are just not ready to provide in the way that they want to for their kiddo. But I'm sure that family is equally blessed with you and the fact that you brought this beautiful son into this world. But that is not your only child. So I want you also to talk about, the journey. So this was part of your journey, but you have a couple other parts of your pregnancy and into motherhood journey that you wanted to share with us today.
I do have a couple other parts. After I gave up Jake for adoption, I got pregnant about a year later, and it was the same relationship. So again, it was the same situation. He kept trying to say, terminate the pregnancy, and it was not something that I could ever do. So we were engaged at the time. He broke off the engagement and asked me to move out of the house.
Whoa.
So I moved back in with my parents.
Okay, I don't know who this guy is, but if I had known you back then and if I had known this guy, I don't even want to start telling you what I would have done to this guy. Jerk face, that's all I got to say. Anyways, sorry, keep going.
It's okay. I moved back in with my parents, and it was hard because even though I grew up in a very pro-life family and they fully supported me not terminating the pregnancy, my parents wanted me to give up the baby for adoption, which they weren't aware of the fact that I had already done that a year prior, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it again because I wanted to be a mother so badly. But my parents were not supportive of me choosing to be a single mom. And I had some pretty severe bleeding issues throughout the pregnancy, and it almost felt at times like my parents were hoping I would have a miscarriage, which made it really hard and really stressful. And around 20 weeks, the bleeding got so bad that it caused a clot in my uterus that caused contractions. And the contractions were so strong that it broke my water. And at 20 weeks, the baby is not viable. So I was admitted to the hospital where they kept trying to get me to induce because there's a very high risk of infection remaining pregnant after your water breaks. But I knew my son couldn't survive if I induced. So, I mean, by God's grace alone, I remained pregnant for about a week, and one day they did an ultrasound and told me that the amniotic fluid was not building back up, so my son's lungs weren't developing. That night I had a very long conversation with my baby, and I told him that it was okay to let go. And his heart stopped that night, and the following morning I was induced and had a stillbirth. Whew.
Dana, it's okay to take a breather, girlfriend. I love you so much. I'm just so proud. You guys, Dana does not share this story with people that are not super close to her. And the fact that I'm just getting teared up too. This is a really deep Monday morning topic, but I promise she has beauty to come in this story. I promise she does. Just hold on for it. But the fact that she's sharing her heart so beautifully is just such an inspiration that stories like this need to be told. There needs to be people who are brave like Dana to tell these stories, and this is her life, and she lived through all these things, and I can't wait to get to the good part. But if you're able to continue on, Dana, I know you have a little bit more to share, but if you also just need to take a break too, we totally understand.
No, I'm good. The next part is a little happier. After losing my son, I found the love of my life, and we moved to Oshkosh together. We ended up getting pregnant in 2011 and had a beautiful, healthy baby boy in 2012. And everything seemed like it was perfect, but I ended up having a postpartum hemorrhage after having my son. And I vividly remember laying on the bed. They wouldn't let me hold my son, and I remember the doctor calling for a crash cart because of how heavily I was bleeding. And it wasn't until that point that I realized how wrong something was going. And up until that point, I just kept asking for apple juice. I was just so thirsty.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me have anything to drink. My body started shaking, and I was going in and out of consciousness. I remember calling Josh over and trying to say goodbye to him because I honestly didn't think I was going to make it. And it wasn't until they got the bleeding stopped. I had multiple blood transfusions. They got me sent down to the ICU. And after 10 hours, I finally got to hold my baby for the first time.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was just such a magical moment.
Everybody who just went through, everybody who has gone through giving birth knows that like instant, like right as soon as that happens and then the baby goes on your chest is like the most magical moment. I cannot even imagine waiting 10 hours to hold my son. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So,
so
you had this healthy baby boy, and the joy that must have come in that moment of finally holding him, the anticipation of all the things that you've gone through up until this point. I'm sure there's things that you suffered from. I know you had talked to me a little bit about some things that you had suffered from all these experiences, but the fact that you were able to hold your baby boy, I'm sure that kind of brought everything together. All those moments were worth it.
Yes, it really did. And I ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD after the fact. But it just, with therapy and medication and lots of prayer, I was able to shift my focus to just really focus on the fact that I finally had the baby boy that I always wanted. And I was finally given the chance to be the mother that I always wanted to be.
And you are an amazing mom, Dana. I've seen you in action. I've seen those sweet babies, and another healthy baby girl that you had in 2015 as well after your baby boy. And I know you have a little sweetheart at home as well.
Yes, I do. And that delivery, thankfully, I thank God every day that delivery went so smoothly. I pushed twice and she was out, and it was immediate skin to skin, and it was just everything that I had always wanted and waited so long for.
Oh, well, Dana, I appreciate your transparency. I think it takes a super brave person to be so transparent. And I know for the listeners that was, a longer beginning, but there are so many facets to Dana's story, and they're all so important to the big mantra that she's about to share with us. And Dana, everyone listening right now, we're here for you, girl. Like, prayers to you, and the fact that you are, living and being an inspiration to other people to share this story that you've learned from and that are still living through as a mom today is so admirable. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's transition, and I'm sure my email will be blowing up after this. They might have more questions for you, and I can pass those along too. So we're going to stop for a second and pause on Dana's story. There is still so much more. If there's a moment that you related to in that story, if there's something that spoke to you, if you've had complications with judgment from family over a pregnancy, if you've had moments where, health reasons and complications in a pregnancy, if you've suffered from PTSD, there are so many facets to her story. If you relate to those, if you have questions, if you want to know more, I will have my email open, after this airs, and you can email me at lizcolburnbb@gmail.com. I'm sure she would love to inspire more, answer any questions, but we're going to transition now into what her life mantra is and why. Go ahead.
All right. I had to think so long and hard about this, just not that I didn't know what my life mantra was, but just how to put it all into words, because there's just so much.
That's a lot, yeah.
But if I had to break it down, I would say my life mantra is that life is a gift, not a guarantee, and that even though we're all bent and broken, that's what it takes for a glow stick to shine.
Oh, my gosh. Can you repeat that one more time? I have never heard that before, and I want you to repeat that. Go ahead.
My biggest thing that I live by every day is don't let your past hold you back. Live in the present and always hold on to hope for a brighter future.
Oh, that's beautiful. The whole, a glow stick. I've never even thought about that. You have to bend and break those dang things, and that's when they shine. And that's just exactly a beautiful picture of what your life has been, Dana. And that's just so beautiful. And how do you feel like through that mantra in your story, you have found the beauty in your journey?
Well, when I was raised with such a pessimistic outlook, and a lot of people are actually shocked that I'm now an optimist by choice.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say you were a pessimist, I find that so hard to believe because you're so optimistic now.
Yeah. I've had my share of trials, and I'll always mourn the loss of my son, but I am such a firm believer in everything happening for a reason. Even if the reason isn't clear in the moment, I'm such a big believer in God having a plan and trusting in that plan. And had I not lost my son Gunnar, I mean, I would never have fallen in love with Josh. I wouldn't have our two beautiful children. I mean, I was able to help create a family by giving up Jake, and by having that, I mean, yeah, it was terrifying to come so close to death, but by having that moment, it makes it so much easier for me to appreciate every little moment that some people overlook in the simple joys of day-to-day life.
Dana, somebody needed, I'm going to say a lot of somebodies, including myself, needed to hear that this morning. And if you're listening to this story right now, I don't know anybody in this world that cannot help but to feel just so close to your story, Dana, and just, it's deep stuff, but the things that you've learned in your own journey to find the beauty in all these experiences and knowing that things happen for a reason, even though you can't see them right away, is such a beautiful testament just, to your story and to just God's overall story of your life. So can you tell us just a little bit about how you want your story and mantra today, the things that you shared to help other people who are listening?
I want people listening to just be able to look back and not let their past hold them back. Whatever it is in your past, I mean, whether it's tragedy or a broken childhood, or if you were a victim of some sort, don't let that hold you back. I mean, it shapes who you become, but it doesn't have to define who you are.
I think that you just nailed it on the head. I mean, people, that happens all the time, and I'm just thinking that there are going to be people that are listening today that have chains that are binding them right now that they need to let go of, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So any other last words about, your story inspiring, or just any last words that you want to share with us today about your story, Dana?
I guess I would just, again, say, I mean, we can't change what's happened to us, but we have control over how we view it. I mean, whether you're raised pessimistic like I was, I mean, you don't have to let your experiences fuel that fire. You can choose to smile and be grateful. You can choose to believe in something greater than yourself, and if you're lucky enough to get a second chance at life like I did, you can choose to make your life mean something. I mean, I believe God kept me here for a reason, and I believe in my heart that that reason is to help others overcome their past and to learn to believe in themselves and their dreams for the future.
Oh my goodness, Dana, thank you so much for being a light to us today. We really appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Oh my goodness. Everyone listening right now, just take a deep breath in and let it out. That was an amazing story. My dear friend Dana, she's just such an inspiration and just on this journey to find her own voice. And I'm so thankful that the Morning Uplift could be a platform for her, but she is just beautiful all by herself. She has a story. She is sharing it. She wants to inspire others. So I want you to think this morning, this Monday morning, as you're getting ready for work or you're on your drive to work or throughout your day, what are those chains that are holding you back from your things that are in your past that are holding you back from your future? What are the things that you need to let go of? What are the things that have shaped you? Maybe there's things that have shaped you that you're just looking at in such a negative light. This is what happened to me. This is what was done to me. How can you flip that? If you listen to Dana, her mantra is all about letting go of being the victim and understanding that everything in your life happens for a reason, for a better purpose. And I just think she said that so beautifully this morning. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope that you are just as inspired as me. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Morning Uplift. I've been your host, Liz Colburn, joined by my beautiful friend Dana, who wants her story to inspire you. I hope you join me again on Friday at 6 o'clock a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com. Go over to the Facebook page, The Morning Uplift, and give it a like. If you missed a show, you can catch it on demand at Spreaker.com or subscribe on iTunes. Again, contact me through email if you have more to share, questions for Dana, or just your takeaways from this week. My email is lizcolburnbb@gmail.com. Thank you so much for spending your morning growing with me. God's blessings on an amazing, purpose-filled week. See you next time as we continue finding the beauty in your journey.